everyone. Welcome to Christiana's Psychic Cafe. We have a wonderful show for you. I want to get right started with our guest, the man of the hour. Jordan Hoggard himself is in the Psychic Cafe this evening. How are you, Jordan?
I'm great. Great to be here, Christiana. Thanks so much. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. And now this is the history on this for people who don't know. Is I was your guest on your show the second day of 2014, and we talked about lots of fun stuff and decided we'd have to finish our conversation. And one thing or another, here we are at the very end of the first quarter.
Already.
Right. It's Q1 is over and gone, Q1 2014. And so, here we are. So let's do this. Before we get into any number of interesting things we might want to discuss, first of all, let's open the phones for readings. Are you willing to do some readings? Yeah?
Oh, always.
Okay, perfect. So, if you would like to have a live, free reading with Jordan and me, pick up the phone, make a phone call. Eric, what's the number?
615-692-1262.
Perfect. Okay. 615-692-1262. You can call anytime during the show. We'll be happy to talk with you. But, Jordan, for the two people out there who don't know who you are, tell us about you, tell us about your tarot deck, tell us about your show here on Penn, tell us everything.
Well, everything begins with I'm a tarot reader. I'm the author of Tarot in the Land of Mysterium. I have just recently reopened my architectural firm because my vision came up in two words, sacred architecture. And so now sacred fire architecture, conscious forms for conscious living, is now live, born, and going. I should be retainering my first project tomorrow already. And after a 3+ year sabbatical, all of me is back online, so to speak, and there you go. So, author, poet, architect, and just generally I like to have fun, because to me, fun is the higher octave of everything.
Yeah, we certainly agree on that. So I'm going to be very interested in hearing what you got going on with architecture. But first, tell us about your show here on Penn.
My show here on Penn is the Interstate Highway Show, tools to help you map your path. And recently, in the last month, I have brought on co-host Isaac Bradfield, an astrologer of over 35 years, also professional tarot reader for the same length, alchemist, thinker, philosopher, humanist, and at the same time, he's like us, where we can play in esoteric land, but we don't get lost there, and it's how do we use this to help our clients engage their charts, their cards, the things going on in their life more. And I think that's one thing great too about being on your show is it's about that, again, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, they don't go 1, 2, 3, 4 cha-cha, they just dance. So
terrific. And people can catch your show Thursday nights, what time?
Thursday nights, 10 Eastern, 8 Mountain, 7 Pacific, and it's on every week, Thursdays. We now have a consistent 1 month appearance every month with Dr. Lori of Dr. Sex Talk, Dr. Sextacular You, and she's a licensed health educator, deals with basically making people's lives sexy, juicy, and sex for health. So she's really opening up people to engage their whole life in that way. So you get the sacred sexuality and how life comes in through where connection is more important than technical gigs. So it's that whole mind, body, beautiful kind of gig. And so she's on the show on Interstate Highways now once a month. We'll have a regular feature with Dr. Sex Talk, Dr. Lori.
That's awesome.
That's a fun new development. I like Dr. Sex Talk. I think it's like Dr. Ruth, but she never goes like a cucumber, like Dr. Ruth used to always do. So she's not as hard, I think, as Dr. Ruth, and she's more fun and juicy. So it's a great addition to the show.
Wow, that is so exciting. So we've got sacred architecture, sacred sexuality. Is there anything that's not sacred? That's the question.
I think the things that are, I really don't care to think about much. They're that chaff that already fell off the weed, and why waste our time with them, you know?
So talk to me about what you're doing in architecture, and let me preface that by saying that, you know, I've been in my life more a city person than a country person, and I'm a fan of architecture. I moved to New Haven, Connecticut because I loved the architecture at Yale and for no other reason. So, you know, I'm a fan of the aesthetics of building. At the same time, living here in Florida, I am well aware of the ravages of development
Mm-hmm.
and how that all works. And what are you doing, Jordan? What's your angle? Talk to us about what you're doing with architecture.
Well, let me beautifully dispense with those developers first. My two jokes are, oh, great, you put forest giants in concrete pots. How quaint, you know? And then two, you come in and you rip out all the native trees and plant non-indigenous trees, but then you come back and name the streets after the trees that you ripped out, like Aspen Lane and Aspen Circle and Aspen Court. And they really destroy wayfinding. It's hard to even find your way around a subdivision. And from my perspective, my architecture used to always be, and I don't want to denigrate what I used to do, but if I look at it from an overall big picture perspective, it was simply I was doing conscious architecture, being as natural as I could. Sacred spaces naturally occurred. But there was a point where the landscape architecture would be kind of a connective skirt to seamlessly segue into the land. And so there was this be respectful quality. That's okay, that's all great and good, but to me that's kind of now 101. Because what the octave I'm working at now is not that. It's now the architecture comes from the land. And I come up from that. And my first project that I cooked up that I have not found a place for yet, though, is a labyrinth. And it's a walking labyrinth that is suspended like a gong. And you walk on the resonating diaphragm of the gong, and there's water running underneath it. There's fire that reflects in the water, and there are actually gongs that then cascade the ripples to resonate under the water on the diaphragm gong you're walking on. So that's the first thing that came out of my head, my heart, with architecture, and that set Sacred Fire Architecture, Conscious Forms for Conscious Living into motion.
Wow. Well, I'm going to want to hear more about that, but it looks like we've got a caller. Hi, caller. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Anita.
Yeah.
Yay! Oh, what fun! How are you doing?
I've been great. Hey, listen, I love this idea of the sacred architecture. Have you thought about incorporating feng shui into this?
Actually, feng shui is the breath of it, and tarot is the mortar and the spaces between. What I realized with that, Anita, is that the 3-year intense leaving architecture was twofold. One, I couldn't clarify my vision. I was doing architecture, but I had reached a point where something about it is not what I'm doing. So what I realized is then going intensely into tarot and literally sabbatically off as if I would never do architecture again, I internalized the tarot more than I ever naturally had before. And so now I'm bringing back this scholarship of symbolic language that adds more of an energetic, viscous liquid to that breath of the feng shui. So very definitely. And even more than the quadrants, the 9 quadrants, the feng shui literally becomes how my architecture inhales and exhales and how the energies flow into and out of the spaces. So yes, thank you so much for bringing up feng shui, because that's the breath now in my work.
So, you know, that gives it a certain conductivity.
Yes.
You know, conducting the energy, the movement of the energy through the spaces and the structures, containing the energy, for strategic amounts of time for specific purposes, and then, assisting it on its way.
And honestly, Anita, Feng Shui, I think, was more of an unconscious form giver to all this outside of even the form givers that I consciously knew were occurring, because I've never designed pretty buildings. I've always designed around the nothingness of a space and getting to know its personality. And then the forms and the materials are literally like dressing it up to go out. And the forms ossify like bones between the spaces. So then you get a natural connectivity between entry spaces and neighboring spaces and adjacent spaces. And that Feng Shui is always there in regards to how these things are living. And Feng Shui literally means wind water. So you get that viscous flow, but when I add the fire to sacred fire architecture, it becomes that living earth, like a volcano is living earth with lava. And I have so much Capricornian grounded energy in my chart, and then I'm a Sag on top of it, and with other qualities that I feel like what's happened is elementally with Feng Shui. I kind of feel like I can pull Feng Shui off now. I can do it in a way simply by working with how my hand works, working with how my natural senses work, and it becomes like a great dinner with friends, and it's like a conversation, that natural now, instead of, on page 42 kind of thing. You know what I mean? So thanks for bringing that up, Anita.
Well, glad to discuss it with you. Are you up for maybe throwing a few cards, you think?
Sure, Anita. Did you want to ask a question, or are you just looking for a general reading? What's good for you today?
Just a few cards about a possibility of relocating to Washington State.
Wow. Do you want to go first, Jordan, and then I'll chime in from the end?
Definitely. What I get here is I get a core card about the move, which it feels like there's going to be an incredible new exchange of how you communicate in a new place. There is also a brand new way things are structurally coming into your life and how you're fulfilled. And wow, you got a 6 and 2 4s, Anita. And since you're a reader too, I'll divulge the cards. You actually 9 of swords, and I'm using the Toth, so you got some real vibrant colors going on here. And then I have the 4 of cups and the 4 of pentacles. So to me, that dynamic communication with the 9s, and then your 2 foundation numbers. Funny, we're talking about architecture. 4 is that first foundational number. It feels like that move to Washington has a great new solidity, a good place for you to set up, and then also a good new place to fill your cup in a completely fulfilling new way. Christiana, what's coming with you?
I'm with you. The first card I pulled was the Ace of Wands, which talks to me about a new vitality, a new inspiration, a new opportunity. It was followed by the 10 of Pentacles reversed, which is interesting because the 10 of Pentacles, of course, the castle card, the real estate card. And so I looked at that, and I'm looking at those 2 cards that almost seem, in a way, opposite one from another. And so then I pulled more cards, which is what I always do. I always pull more cards. Page of Cups, 5 of Pentacles reversed. And so here's the story that I see here. I agree with Jordan, Anita, that this is a wonderful opportunity. When I see the 5 of Pentacles reversed, that's my keyword, opportunity. It is an interesting thing. I think the 10 of Pentacles reversed talks about leaving a place that has been your home, even on a very deep and spiritual level, and going to a very different place. But the Page of Cups suggests that this can be a place of your heart. So I see new creative opportunities, new healing, new positivity. I think the logistical opportunities to make such a drastic move will be available to you. And overall, I think it'll be good for you. So I think we're in concurrence, Jordan. We like it.
No, I think so. And if I then kind of take a technique I like to do, especially now back in architecture, I can go on a couple more cylinders. If I put the Four of Pentacles and the Four of Cups together as one concept, there feels to be power and luxury, so that your power is not going to be dominion or possession. It's that new real estate Ten of Pentacles you had, Christiana, reversed, and then there's power and luxury. So it feels that tactile, what makes you feel good, is a true currency that's going to be there in a whole new way that may not be where you are now.
A whole new chapter, Anita. What do you think?
Wow. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And of course, our relationship with you won't change at all because, we're all internet friends, so we don't even have to be sad about you moving away.
We have just a little E in front of the big R in E-relationship. So wherever you are, we're right there with you.
That's it.
It's interesting that I got some of the same cards when I read on this matter for myself.
Nice.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Anita. We really appreciate your calling in. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. And that's how it works. Anyone who would like a free reading with Jordan and me, just pick up the phone, do as Anita did. 615-692-1262 is the number. And Jordan, you were just telling us about this really interesting architectural journey through the four elements was what it was turning into in my mind. Is that what that was?
That was, and I have to say, and I don't mean to buzzkill anyone out there in the audience, so don't get sad when I say this, please. But just about 2 months ago, my cat of almost 21 years, he would have been 21 on March 5th, passed. And we went to do a burial in the mountains, and as I dug the shovel in, the ground was frozen 6 inches down, and I didn't even think about the seasons. So there you go, winter, get an elemental coming in there. So we did an above ground ceremony. But the next day, my girlfriend emails me and she goes, Merc, my cat, Merc 1, comma, Coyotes 0, meaning he's still there. And so I waited, gave it one more day. Maybe they were on a different place or cycle, but he was still there the second morning. And so I just pushed everything around on the schedule because things like that are more important than anything else. And to complete his body's passing, I loaded up my trunk with firewood and I went out to the land and I did a 5-hour fire vigil and cremated him. And then I sifted the ashes and pulled the bones, and I placed all the bones on a framed picture of a field of sunflowers. And then I could put that into the ground in a low burial. And I think that's really where sacred fire architecture came from. And I didn't even know it till weeks afterwards when he kind of popped up and I smiled. And, it was 21 years of rock and goodness of a best friend. And so those elements, life including all of them, obviously, came up naturally. And so that's really the cycle through the elements. And so it's so great with Tarot because we have the elements and then we have the majors. And what's nice about this cycle of the elements with architecture is I'm really living the four elements in a major arcana kind of way. So they've all come together in that 5 that come together as the 6th of all of them together. And that's almost like a sixth sense, where all 5 senses are seamlessly working together as one. And
exactly.
My cat gives me seeing with cat's ears. A cat will be looking at you and their ear just turns. They don't lose their focus, but they're watching the whole world with their ear. So elementally, it feels that when all the elements work together, like in a tarot reading just now, you get a good story that reels out that can really energize things and clarify vision.
Now, we've got a question in the chat room, but I want to ask you a question real quick. You mentioned that you were reading with the Crowley deck.
Yes.
And we're talking about the elements. Do you do elemental dignities?
I think elements have dignity, but in regards to that system, I've always fallen off that bandwagon, because to me it's a great idea, but as you and I both grew up in the church, we got over dogma. So dogma's to me good for structure, but parts of it, I'm going to pop off that structure. That piece doesn't belong. So I would have to say, honestly, yes, but cross-check me about specifics, and I'll probably give you more of a savant answer as to what I'm doing than an actual answer from their rules, if that makes sense.
Totally, and I'm the same way. I mean, I'm very aware of the elements in a reading, certainly earth, air, fire, and water, and how they play together. But the structure, as you say, the dogma of, that tradition, and I honor it as a powerful tradition and all of that, but I don't do it either. That's cool. So here's the question. We got to do a reading for someone in the chat room. Here's the question. I have started a new path in employment. Do you see success?
Wow. Yes.
Yes.
Queen of Wands, Ace of Discs. Your new path is a full-on energetic clarity, a new place for you, but naturally leading you like a queen. I mean, queens to me are the natural leaders. They can see everybody, including how the king acts, but from a silent place. And the Ace of Discs, you're planting new assets and seeds in that employment that are creating, again, I used it in the last reading, but there's this currency quality going through tonight. And then, go figure, the Tower. So it's the thing, your old structures have crumbled down, and this Ace of Discs is just, it's as if the Tower is crumbling down because all the sprouts were pushing up like a sprout would crack a concrete sidewalk. So it feels that that energetic clarity really juiced up that Ace of Discs to sprout and topple over your previous structures. So in regards to success, if I drop out the Tower, because that seems to always have already happened, as it always does, and drop back to Queen of Wands, Ace of Discs, and make those into one card, your solidity is how you move differently now, and how you feel how you're moving, not how you think. So I think with this Queen of Wands, fire, we'll get into the elements, and the Ace of Wands, or Ace of Pentacles, earth, make sure you're conscious to stay out of your head. So the consciousness of engaging your heart. And the head can be there for, your grocery store list and for your task outline. But it feels like you're in a place now where you can do what you feel in a way that's going to be more conducive to your success. What do you have there, Christiana?
Well, I agree that it's a positive and necessary thing, but the concern is for balance. That this has added a huge new factor into everything that you do, and finding the right balance for your time and your energy is now going to become a huge challenge. The thing to remember is it's all doable. You're in charge of it. It's all doable, and it is the right path. There's no question. And so thank you for that question in the chat room. And I am keeping my eye on the chat room. I see lots of cool people in there, so that's terrific. If you have a question for Jordan and me, we will do your free tarot reading right up until 10 o'clock, or whatever time it is, right up to the top of the hour, whatever time it is where you are. Just give us a call, 615-692-1262, or just chat your question in the chat room, and we'll be more than happy to read for you. So let's talk about a really controversial topic, Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'll enlist your help, okay? I've been doing this video series on YouTube, answers to your questions about tarot. People write in questions. It can be anything from how do you interpret this card to what's the right way to shuffle to the deck to What do you think of, I mean, all kinds of things. It's been an amazing, diverse number of questions. The question I'm going to answer this week and want to answer very carefully. Is it okay for Christians to use tarot cards?
No. I've heard that.
What do you mean?
No, I think actually, even prefacing it with our talk with the dogma of, I think the tarot will actually help people, Christians, find the true heart of what they're doing. A minister last month, I was just, you bump into someone on the corner of the street and the lights change, but then some car zips around the corner. So you're stuck for another light cycle crossing the street. Well, so what I do is I turn around, who's here? Let's talk. And of all people, it was a Methodist minister. So go figure from our background. And I told him, I said, okay, what's the point of religion? We only have one light cycle here to talk before we're both on our own. What's the point of religion? He goes, my wife and I were talking about this morning. The point of religion is to be able to get out of it. He said, you get so far into religion, the point is to find the heart of it, to be able to slough the religion off and find your true divinity. So he was using the structure, the hierophantic sitting on the throne, established, etc., structure as a catalyst and a stair-step structure, ladder, to move through the portal of organized religion and open up into divination or to the divine. And I said, oh, cool, I do tarot. He said, oh, so you know about divination and divine things. And then the light changed, and nice to talk to you.
Wow.
So I think, I think it kind of makes their religion more vibrant.
Yeah.
What do you?
Well, first of all, for everyone who does not know sort of the history here, Jordan and I both come from theological families. Jordan's grandfather was a Methodist minister. My father was a Methodist minister. So this has been sort of a point of interest for the two of us. And, it never occurred to me that there was anything about tarot, the study of tarot or tarot reading, that would be inappropriate for Christians. But I do recognize that there is a sect of Christianity that finds it abhorrent. And of course, okay, tarot is 500 years old. There is no reference to tarot in the Bible. There is reference to divination, to prophecy, to astrology, all in a very positive way. And so as I'm trying to craft a very respectful answer to this question, is it okay for Christians to read tarot? I'm trying to figure out where along the way did this group of Christians come to a place where they said that this is bad, this is wrong. Where did that happen? Do you have a sense of that, Jordan?
I think it's always been there, because it's one of those, the more things change, the more things they stay the same. And, you can say we're so different than this and so different from that. But even if you look at fashion and baggy pants come back, oh, we're back to the 40s. Or bell bottoms come back, oh, we're back to the 60s. We're always back to somewhere, but we're always right now. And what I find is they're always, the bad apples, and they get a handle on taking the helm. But something my grandfather said, he said, one thing about Methodism is that's different than all the other Christian sects, is that if you find what you love, and you do what you love, then it's okay with us, because it's okay with you. If you do something that's not healthy, that's where we draw the line. But it's the kind of thing where to him, he was very much into, our Methodism is for you to find your way in the best way. And so, not to minimize this question at all, but to be take a little attempt at humor, is that, my false idols are like as good as American Idol. And sometimes they give me tingles, like some of those people auditioning where I'm like, whoa, that voice, and you feel it all the way through. And that brings up to me, if the tarot energizes you in a way that gives you tingles, that is a juiced up, energizing piece of your Christianity, so much the better. And if not, find something that goes with your Christianity that does give you those tingles, that does give you the feeling of full-on engaging life. And that's the way I would frame it, because I think it's always been there. I don't think human nature has changed that much, though I think now there is a lot more of the higher octave sensibility is taking the helm, rather than the bad hierophantic apples kind of. The hierophant on a bad day is the stubborn, unbending traditionalist.
Sure.
But hierophant on a good day is the silverback gorilla with lots of little gorillas hanging on his ears and jumping around, and he's still got the 100-yard stare, and he's calm. They could tug his ear off, and he'd still be smiling. So it's that kind of thick structure, I think, that's important to find in someone's religion, and find that life that he has that's so strong that he can be gentle and soft while he's being strong.
Perfect. Okay, we have to get to work, Jordan. We've got questions in the chat room.
Awesome.
Get shuffling. Okay.
All right.
Let's start. Oh, and just an interesting note, Anita, who we just spoke with on the phone, she is also the granddaughter of a Methodist minister. So it's United Methodist Night here on Christiana Psychic Cafe. How weird is that? But there it is.
Well,
Okay.
UMYF will now be something else.
So before we go on, true confession, and I want to know this from Anita as well. Okay. Methodist Youth Fellowship. Did you ever, as part of a Methodist Youth Fellowship meeting, sneak off and do something that you shouldn't have been doing?
Actually, no, and but I'm going to qualify that to give you the yes part of it, because I didn't sneak off to do it. Here's my zoning administrator. No, I didn't walk in that room. I did reach into it, though, kind of thing, is I never skipped school in high school either. I found other things to do in the school. I might not have gone to class, but I skipped school and never leave the grounds. But what I did in UMYF is I would take people's money at the pool table. I was gambling in church, and I laughed at, well, it must have been a divine thing because I never lost my money at church. So that's my yes to it. I just didn't sneak off to do it. I did it right there within this whole thing. What about you? True confessions.
Oh, God. I was bad. I was really, really bad. I was the minister's daughter. I had to have a certain level of being a juvenile delinquent to balance it all off. And so I was president of UMYF for a couple of years. And during the time of my presidency, we did great fundraising. We had great programs. But there was a second agenda. And there it was. I was bad.
Good for you. Good for you. Troublemakers rule the world, If it's not right, we keep it fun, and then when it is right, we just have fun with it. So,
So true. It helped me out as a parent. There was really no way that either of my kids could get away with anything because I'd been there and done it.
You'd already done it. You could play quiet, give them a little longer rope to push the fence out, the boundaries a little further, but then, of course, they stop.
And, okay, so I am in the minority here, it seems, because Anita said no, she never did either. So,
but you don't have her face there. I think she's chuckling, going, do they really believe me when I say that? Anita's... Okay, so let's rephrase. Okay, Anita, what did you do that wasn't sneaking off and that was unique, creative, and... Because otherwise I think we have an Anita imposter here. Because she's got such life and spirit. What cool thing did you do that we didn't do, that we're not even thinking about how to ask the question?
Seriously. Okay, so here's a question. This is coming from Akita Girl. And her question is Is anything, okay, the question is anything ever going to improve for me?
Well, go big and you'll get an expansive answer, and we'll see if we can dial into well, big and very soon. I get the Magician and the High Priestess, 1, 2. And so there's something that feels that's a first spark that you're experiencing. I'd like you to take a good, heartfelt look at the subtleties and nuances in your life. Something that may bore you and you find expected, but that's only something you have. In a sense, like a mystic will think, oh, everyone thinks like this, right? You think differently in a certain way, and that magician, that first spark, is going to High Priestess give form to the formlessness. And it feels like something that's a nuance already in place, like a sprout in your garden. It's a perennial. Take care of some detail, some nuance that's not asleep anymore, and that you can pursue, and you're going to make the change. You're going to cause the change with highlighting, looking at the microscope of some detail, like a little gold fleck, but you go into it, and it's a big nugget in your life.
Okay, and I will add to that, you know, it is hard not to comment on the phrasing of the question. When we have, is my life ever going to get better, that is definitely coming from a perspective, a particular perspective. And so, you know, the question I would first ask with a question like that is, okay, what does your life look like now? If we ask the universe to show us a picture of your life now, what does it look like? And what we get is the King of Wands. Now, the King of Wands does not, to me, describe a horrible life. It describes a great deal of strength. It describes a great deal of strength that, to me, really speaks to creativity, spirituality, ability to make things happen. And so, yes, your life can get better because you can make it better. You already have that power with you. And so then the next question is, well, how do you do that? And the answer is 9 of Swords reversed. Stop worrying so damn much. I realize that's cavalier, but there it is. So
well, I would chime in to say, we start with 2 majors, you go to a court, then you drop down into the minors, and then I just kept going with you, and I get a Queen of Cups. So it hops back to another court. This is a big, important time in her life. So I think you're right on the money. Keep going there.
Right. Okay, and we have another question, which is from Christine. Christine says that she has so many opportunities. Hang on a minute, okay. We are in the process of getting put back on air. We've been off air for a few moments, but it will all be here in the archives, so we're going to keep going. All right, so here is Christine's question. Christine has so many opportunities to explore at the moment. Which one should she focus on to create financial stability? What do you think?
It feels, I think, the structure of your last response generates this one, where there's a question in terms of, the first card I'm going to pull is, what should you carve off in terms of all these choices so you're not looking at so many things? I find there's a tendency to make lots of little things into one big thing. And the first card is the 8 of Cups. What I would carve off is anything you're inherently comfortable with that doesn't challenge you. Because this 8 of Cups is a full-on emotional plateau. You're almost too comfortable. You can move around at ease, but you're not getting anywhere doing that. The second card will be also what to release, but to release in a more emphatic way, and that's the Prince of Wands. So what I would look at is take an energy that you have fully incorporated, that you can use on the move, and stop relying on it. Because it feels like then now the card, the challenge card, to get into this group of which one should you do, it's the Two of Swords. There's a mind movie going on that I think you see. You already, feels like you already kind of know which way you want to go, but it feels, if I clarify this with the Eight of Swords, there's almost an ability to stick to the point that's getting clouded by all these choices. And I feel like then that Two of Swords, that mind movie, what's really going on in your mind where reasons are completely unreasonable? You don't need to explain yourself, express yourself, or even define your priorities. There feels to be something going on where you can clear out those incorporated emotional aspects, the places where you're comfortable emotionally, and really open up to sit down at the movie of your mind, and that you know what's there is what I'm getting. And that'll help you, Ace of Swords. Stick to the point and select, not choose. Select, because that then respects back to your original. You have so many choices. Part of those choices is you put those in the mix. So it feels getting down to that Two of Swords, Ace of Swords, which then is descending rather than ascending. That what's the mind movie? What's where you know what it is that you feel to want to do. And I think it's literally with those two swords, get out of your head and don't mind fight it and that kind of thing. Where that's mind movie. What in her mind is there that she already resonates with? That if she just began it, Ace of Swords, select the point. I feel it's going to open up. What do you get in there, Christiana?
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing is I feel like Christine has a huge amount of talent. And so many of the opportunities opening up would lead her to a sense of financial stability and success. I think the problem is she doesn't realize this. She wants to know what's going to be most financially sustainable for her. And I'm thinking that's not even the question. I think that everything that she could do could be financially sustainable. She needs to do the thing that she'd be bummed out if she didn't do.
And that's that mind movie. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. I'm resonating with the way you put that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, moving on, and just to let you know, in the chat room, in our question about what we Methodist offspring were doing that we weren't supposed to be doing, Anita was demonstrating at anti-war rallies and for the Farm Workers Union.
Okay.
So there you go.
Wasn't at UMYF, she went bigger. Okay, so no, she didn't lie. I love that kind of zoning answer. No, I didn't walk in the room, but I did reach in and grab that thing I wasn't supposed to.
Absolutely. It's an interesting thing, though. The Methodist Church, at least in the Northeast, where I still keep tabs because that was where my father's conference was. There's been a huge issue about gay marriage and gay ministers. And the Methodist Church, as socially conscious as it usually is coming down, in my opinion, on the wrong side of history right here.
Wow.
It's a sad thing. A lot of people are leaving the Methodist Church in favor of the UCC for that reason. The United Church of Christ is open and affirming, and Methodists have chosen not to be.
That's quite a shame, because I mean, personally, I don't straight tarot read. I don't have straight friends or gay friends. I don't have adjective friends. I don't adjective tarot read. I don't adjective walk. I didn't gay or straight park my car today. I read tarot. I have friends, And so to me, if someone has a lover, a partner, they don't have an adjective partner, unless it's a rockin' partner. I mean, that's different. but that's more of a descriptive than a general overall. I think that, wow, that really is coming down on the wrong side of that history there.
Yeah. And, you know, it's really sad to me just because I have been so, you know, prior to that, I had been so involved in like the Board of Church and Society and, you know, very involved in what I felt were socially conscious issues. And of course, I don't even identify as Christian anymore, but I do still have some connection there. And it makes me sad that they're not doing well.
Well, it does, because it almost feels to be a polarization from when other, I won't mention names, religions were so dogmatically against pretty much anything that was enjoyable. And if you flip that around, where that religion that, I'll be coy and say, well, that religion has the Pope.
That religion has the Pope.
I won't mention them specifically, but maybe that's a clue. But then Methodism, which was always so compassionate and inclusive and looking for what makes someone tick in a heartfelt way. And frankly, if you're a good person, stop worrying about doing wrong things, because you probably are relatively incapable of them. So get to your heart space of what really works. So that's distressing, that kind of brittle dogma that's not structure, dogma that's a thorn rather than is kind of creeped in. That, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, interesting stuff. So when we last had our conversation at the very beginning of 2014, we were looking at a couple of different tarot cards. Of course, the Chariot, since this is the year of the Chariot.
Right.
Somehow the Hermit came into that conversation. I don't even remember what that was about. But tell me, how has Q1 of 2014 been for you?
Emancipating. Flightful. And not easy, but exactly the not easy I like, where I feel the clutch is out, the gears are in play, and the rubber's meeting the road. And so it's being attentive to how do things support my vision. And it almost became kind of a hard line of, if it doesn't support my vision, it does not belong. And it won't even be removed. It will be dropped as I'm moving to things that do. So again, back to the previous reading, the reasons are unreasonable. It's a matter of 2014 to me has been the fire, sacred fire, is purifying, burning off the unnecessary. So basically the phoenix coming from the ashes doesn't take the fireplace with it, you know? It doesn't take the shell. You know, you don't want the shell in the omelet. The phoenix is not going to take the fireplace in the same way. So that's, for me, generally, metaphorically, and then specifically, 1, 2, 3 to open up. My cat passes. I think that was a setup that he caused. I fall in love, head over heels, in the most depthful relationship I've ever had. Best friend, lover, life partner, and my architecture firm opens back up, and tarot is the mortar. So for me, 1, 2, 3, I don't know how life could get much better, except that it is getting better every single day. So
you just got a girlfriend in the past 3 months?
I actually did the fire vigil on her land, and it was one of those things where we had been friends for about 8 months, and it did deep friendship. And the fire vigil, she saw my heart side, which I didn't realize. I only give that really to people I'm close to, but we saw each other in a whole different light. And a couple of weeks after that, yes.
Wow, how awesome is that?
Very awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
right? That is very cool.
Thank you. Thank you. How is your 2014? Because I know we had a wonderfully squirrely chariot hermit conversation that could go lots of places, but it feels to come back to the chariot hermit was they were both the heart of the matter for each other. So what's your 2014 heart of the matter? What are you doing?
So far, so good. My biggest complaint is that I don't have enough time to do all the fabulous things that I want to do.
Nice.
Right. So that's my only complaint. Really, everything is going really, really well. We've moved to the Tampa area. Actually, we've been here a year now, so we're in sort of a new place. We like it. It's all good. And so let's do this. Let us each pull a card for our own second quarter. Since we start the second quarter in a couple days, okay? How will the second quarter be for me? Let's each pull a card for ourselves.
And afterwards, each pull a card for each other.
Oh, yes. That's awesome.
Dance it, you know.
Okay, so you go first. What'd you get?
Four of Cups.
Okay, so what's that mean for your Q2 2014?
It feels like I'm in the beginning phase of one of those large portals of fulfillment. This feels like a first complete step. The preparation is complete, and this takes to me emotionally to a more full, higher octave is what that card is telling me. In the context of everything else that's going on, the 4 feels almost emperor level minor arcana 4.
Sure.
Because it naturally feeds in as a detail, but at the higher octave level of the things that have been happening, I really have to respect those and pull this into that rather than pull them down to the card. And it feels that in the context there, that 4 of Cups really gives me basically 4 cups one for each element. You know, how does each element fulfill me is the question that's coming to me. What are your thoughts on that?
I think with the 4 of Cups, there is a real sense of needing to have a certain kind of patience in order to discern what next steps will be.
Well, what's beautiful about that is in 2002, when I first opened my architecture firm, I asked the question, I graduated from these other places, what's my next step? I couldn't answer that question. I tried to make it trickier and more fun and say, what's my vision? Well, I really couldn't answer that question. And 12 years later, the 2 words sacred architecture comes up, and there you go. I think that goes right into what you just said there.
Absolutely. So I got the 2 of Swords. And my whole deal right now is to be in a place of balance where I can get everything done and still honor the things that I need to honor for me, which is not always easy. Like, I'm lucky in that I'm really busy and really successful in my career, which is great.
Right.
But I also want time to hang out with my family and do creative stuff that isn't work-related. So this will be about finding that balance, most certainly. Okay, so now we'll do a card for each other.
Real quickly, what came to mind with your swords was a military group at a wedding, red and blue on either side with the swords touching, and you're walking through the archway of them, the procession to the altar. I mean, trying to find enough time to do all the great things you have to do, that's a great problem to have. Right. But those 2 swords, instead of just being the standard 2 swords or even the crossing, the people with the swords over making this archway just came to mind. So just as an image.
Nice. I like it. Okay, so pull a card for me for the second quarter of 2014.
Three of Wands.
Nice. What do you think?
I think that balance is not a balance of two. It's the cycling balance of three. Energy's moving in, being utilized, continuing through, like a fan. Just motion. Nothing's getting stuck. Nothing's getting held. So there's kind of a cleanliness to the energies that move in, activate, and move through. That is there with that Three of Wands. Because the three, that Mercedes symbol, the peace symbol, that spinny kind of symbol with three. Empress, first level of shape, triangle. Things have reached around to touch back to make a shape. So it feels like the cleanliness of energy in your mix that's cycling through. That goes with your balance, but it feels to tune the balance up from two to then go ahead and add the space between the two to make a three, to make a more solid connection.
Nice. Okay, so my card for you for the second quarter of 2014. Ooh, the Seven of Swords. Ooh, okay. So traditionally, the Seven of Swords is the Thieves card. It talks about treachery. But I think that when I look at the Seven of Swords in the context of this question, what I would say is figure out this in these next 3 months, figure out what is really true and what is really not true. Mm-hmm. That this is a time to really cut away that which no longer serves you and focus entirely on what does. And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I always like it when these kinds of things come up, because that is for a tarot student, and I hope we have some tarot students watching. For a tarot student, that's always the hardest thing. We're trying to do this sort of positive, uplifting thing, and you get a card that is traditionally considered more negative. Rather than looking at this as predicting 3 months of treachery and dishonesty, which doesn't make sense and doesn't really fit in the context of the question, to really see how the Thieves card could play out in a proactive and positive way.
And I think for all the students out there too, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind with that card, sneaky, devious, sly, hiding in plain sight, stealthy, and that all goes with thieving. But if I then play that card into my context of a trinity of big activities going on that have established, I have to, again, pull the card up into the scale of that, and no one card could topple that all down in a sense. But what happens is it comes to what you just said. I'm looking for what's hiding in plain sight. Goes back to, if it doesn't fit the vision, I just drop it as I'm moving to something that does. No thought or will in what's wrong. You identify it, and it's gone. So there's no judge and jury in this time. And so to me, that thief, it's an important card to get right now, because that one little card pulled up into the scale of what's going on in my life, to me it catalyzes and it opens up into what's called perspective. When you said, look at what's true and what's not true. And so it's making sure that as I expand larger, I don't distend my perspective. I don't create bigger holes for things to fall through. It's a bigger system that's just as well put together as a smaller. So thank you for that, because looking for what's true versus not true higher octavizes that Seven of Swords. And that's a great lesson for all the students out there too. You're running, Christiana, with that card. And you're taking the meanings and you're applying them in a really, not broad, but a really catalyzed way that fits that card.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan, and thank you for being here on the Psychic Cafe tonight.
Hour.
I know, right?
Right.
We're coming to the end of our time. We did have a wee little technical problem, so for those of you that we did read for. If you did not hear your reading, do not fret. You can watch it in archive because we did indeed read for you. And we will read for you again another time on the Psychic Cafe. Jordan, you'll come back again in a few months, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Very good.
And I want you back on my show as well.
I would be happy to do it. In the meantime, Jordan, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
You can go to the Divination Studio, divinationstudio.com. There's a direct email hidden under the contact at the bottom, so spammers and robots won't get it. But it's jjordantarot@gmail.com, and that's the Divination Studio, divinationstudio.com. I have all of my links to blogs and the products that I offer. You can also go to jordanhoggard.wordpress.com. And then Powerscopes, my empowerment tool day by day throughout 2014, is available at the Divination Studio.
Perfect, Jordan. Thank you so much. And everyone, please remember, check me out at tarotbychristiana.com. And remember, if you sign up on my website for my weekly newsletter, you will get my Tarot Topics newsletter in your inbox every Wednesday, and you'll be glad you did.
And I will say, you will be glad you did. Sign up for Christiana's newsletter. I get it every week, and it's one of those, I may not read it immediately because I want to spend some time with it, but I keep it floated to the top. So subscribe to her newsletter. It comes out like clockwork on Wednesday, and you will juice your weeks up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan. Have a great week. We'll see you all back here next week on the Psychic Cafe.
Take care.